Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. We're going to get right to it. As the title says, what is the #1 upgrade that you would make to your firearm that's going to improve your ability to effectively use that firearm? So let's get right to it. So when we talk about the modern sporting rifle, because these things are just ridiculously popular right now, people start thinking about all the upgrades, all the modifications, all the tweaking, everything that you can do to these things. Rifles like this AR here, every component you can change out, every piece under the sun you could switch out and maybe make an argument to being the best or #1 upgrade that you'd make to the firearm to make it better. Strong argument that people have is the optic. Hey, you need to have a good optic. We're going to skirt around that. I think there's something different. Another strong argument that people talk about is outside the realm of the firearm completely is training for the operator. And though I do agree, I think that is an argument for maybe a different topic, but I do feel that training and effective knowledge on how to actually use whichever firearm, whether it's the AR, something like this pistol here, or something like this long gun, this rifle right here, knowing how to effectively use the firearm and all the features of it is huge. But what I'm getting at more here is something we could say more mechanical in nature that I feel is the #1 effective upgrade, tweak, swap, change that you may want to make to the rifle. And what I feel that is the trigger. All of my rifles, I have modified the trigger. There's very few that I have not made an adjustment to the trigger. And you may ask why. Well, let's think about this. You can have a superb optic on this thing. If you don't know how to effectively pull the trigger, squeeze the trigger, or use the trigger, your optic is going to allow you to see your misses, not your hits. A trigger is something that most rifles from the factory, now we do have a lot of custom guns these days and a lot of smaller mom and pop type manufacturers and people actually building these at home and putting quality triggers in them. But I'm talking big box stores and some of the mass produced rifles have a trigger that has a gritty, a rough, or a very heavy trigger pull. And let's think about this. If you're new to shooting firearms or if you've been around the block a bit, you know that as you squeeze your trigger, so the firearm is empty and we're on safe, we're on fire, and as I squeeze the trigger on this rifle, I'm aiming, my hand is going to pull a bit the direction of my finger if I have a heavy trigger pull on this rifle. Accuracy is improved by having a smooth and a safe but light trigger that you're comfortable pulling. Now this rifle right here has a trigger that I keep mine all set. On my sporting rifles like this, I've got these in about the 4-pound range. Now some of my long guns that I use, my precision 22s, and some of my centerfire rifles that I do more precision work, I've got those at 1 pound or even under 1 pound. And that brings me to having a quality one of these. This is a Lyman digital trigger gauge, and what this does is it tells you the weight of the pull. I've also got this here. I picked this thing up because these were on sale, not to use, but more as a demonstration point. This is Wheeler's trigger gauge, and what this is, really, this is nothing more than a fish scale. You go bass fishing, you catch that fish, and you hang him by his gills, tells you how heavy he is. That's kind of what these are. And though I will say this is better than nothing, this is nowhere near as accurate or as usable as something like this. So if you've got one of these, hey, I'm not saying don't use it. However, these really just get you in the ballpark of what you want to do. So with that, what I am suggesting, the #1 upgrade if you're looking to modify your modern sporting rifle, your centerfire rifle, your long rifle, even your pistols, especially these pistols. A lot of these pistols have a very, very heavy and long travel trigger on them. Look into upgrading your trigger. A trigger makes your shooting more pleasant, it's more enjoyable, it's just, You know, it's like having a cleaner experience when you go to pull that trigger that breaks consistently smooth and without a lot of effort that's going to affect your accuracy. So that is my sense, aside from some of the other things. And I do agree, training, you got to have training, you got to have knowledge on how to operate the firearm. However, mechanically speaking, I think before you go investing in a fancy optic, a fancy new barrel, a fancy new chassis or stock for your firearm, looking at putting a quality trigger that is adjustable and suits your needs as far as you feel it works well for you. Hunters generally have a little bit more weight on it than some of the precision target guys. A lot of different brands out there to choose from these days. The market has exploded with drop-in triggers for these modern sporting rifles. There used to be Geissele and your mil-spec triggers, and a couple other little brands like Timney were out there, Jewel, but there are all kinds of triggers out there now that I could rattle off a million different names, and the prices have come down on them. So look at getting yourself a nice trigger if you haven't done so for your modern sporting rifle or even for your centerfire rifles. Now, the last caveat is some rifles you may not be able to find a trigger for. And if that's the case, if you know a good gunsmith who can swap out some springs, polish some parts, take a little material off some parts, if you're not comfortable doing that yourself, don't go doing it. Have a gunsmith do that for you. But some of them, it's quite easy. My CZ457, you can buy this little spring. Looks like a spring from an ink pen. It's a simple swap out, and it really drops the weight down on it. So there are options out there. All right, I'm rambling. So this was some quick impromptu content. I hope you like it. Give me some comments in the comment section and let me know what you think. How do you feel about the trigger being a #1 upgrade for your rifle? With all that said, you know where I'm going with this. Keep on shooting.